The first time you try a new tool, it feels like magic. You press a button. Something appears. A picture. A sound. A draft. A shape that looks finished. And for a second you feel two things at the same time. Excitement. And a little fear. Because if the tool can do this so fast, what is left for you to do? That is a very human reaction. It is the same feeling people had when they first saw a camera. Or when they first saw a machine weave cloth. Or when they first heard music made by a system that never gets tired. At first, the worry is simple. A machine will replace the person. But then you stay with the tool for longer than a few minutes. You try it again. And again. And something changes. The magic becomes normal. The surprise becomes a pattern. You start to notice the edges. You start to notice the repeats. The same smooth look. The same safe choices. The same familiar mood. And that is when you understand a deeper point. A tool can produce a lot, but it does not automatically produce meaning. That difference matters. Because meaning is not just output. Meaning is intention. It is taste. It is selection. It is what you leave out. It is the quiet decision to aim at one feeling instead of another. That is where the human stays. The context here is not just about art. It is about how we react to technology when it enters a space we care about. Especially a space where craft matters. A place like filmmaking. A place like museums. A place like design. These worlds have always been built from many hands and many choices. Even one finished work often carries 100 hidden decisions. Where the light comes from. How long the pause is. How rough the surface should feel. How much detail is too much detail. A new tool enters and it promises speed. It promises more. More images. More variations. More options. And it can be useful. It can save time. It can unlock experiments. It can help you test ideas quickly. But it also brings a new tension. Because it can flood the room with options. And when there are too many options, it becomes harder to choose. So the first insight is the surface concept. AI is not a new artist. It is a new kind of paintbrush. That sounds simple. Almost too simple. But stay with it. A paintbrush does not choose the painting. It does not decide what the painting should feel like. It does not know when to stop. It can help a skilled person move faster. It can help a beginner try things they could not do before. But it does not carry the inner reason. It does not carry the lived memory that makes a small detail matter. When a person makes a piece of work, they are not only making an object. They are making a set of choices that reflect who they are. Even in commercial work. Even when there is a deadline. Even when it is part of a big team. The voice shows up in tiny places. A tool can help with a part of the job. Clean up a rough edge. Create a quick test. Offer a starting point. But the work becomes art when a person shapes it with purpose. This leads to the second insight, the hidden assumption. Many people think the main danger is replacement. But the deeper danger is something quieter. It is sameness. It is the slow flattening of taste. Because when a tool is designed for easy use, it is often designed to please quickly. A little input. A lot of output. And the output is often impressive at first glance. But it is also safe. It leans toward what has worked before. It leans toward the average. It leans toward the things many people already like. If you are not careful, you end up with a world full of work that looks polished but feels empty. Not because it is bad. But because it is too smooth. Too correct. Too predictable. You can feel this in your own life. Think about when you scroll through short videos and after 5 minutes everything starts to blend. The faces change. The music changes. But the feeling stays the same. That is not only because people copy each other. It is also because the systems reward a narrow range of styles. The pattern repeats. And your brain gets tired. The same thing can happen in art. If a tool makes it easy to produce 10 versions, you might stop pushing for the one version that actually says something new. You might stop taking the risk. So the question becomes not can the tool make art? The question becomes can the artist still take risks while using the tool? And this is where the third insight appears, the structural pattern. The best work often comes from constraints. Limits. Rules. A small space. A small budget. A certain material. A deadline that forces focus. Even in storytelling, you set rules early so the audience can relax. They sense a stable world. They trust the tone. They trust the design. They feel held. Without rules, everything can happen, and then nothing feels important. This is why unlimited power can be strangely boring. When you can do anything, it is harder to know what matters. When the light can be perfect from any angle, you might lose the charm that comes from imperfect light. When the surface can be endlessly smooth, you might lose the small textures that make it feel real. When a system can generate endless music, you might lose the silence that makes one note feel heavy. So a new tool does not remove the need for constraints. It increases the need for them. Because the tool expands possibilities. And the artist must now create the boundaries on purpose. This is not a problem. It is a responsibility. And it is also an opportunity. Because it pushes the artist to become more clear about what they value. Not what is possible. What is worth doing. Now we can reframe the whole situation with a new perspective. The real future is not artists versus machines. The real future is artists building new kinds of craft. Craft is not just tradition. Craft is attention. Craft is care. Craft is the ability to see what most people do not see, and then to shape it. In a museum, craft can mean placing objects in a way that creates a hidden connection. One piece changes the meaning of another piece just by being nearby. In film, craft can mean using many tools at once, old and new, and blending them so smoothly that the audience cannot tell where one ends and another begins. That mystery is part of the magic. Not because the tools are secret, but because the choices are invisible. A person may know that a scene used screens and digital extensions and practical sets, but they still cannot guess the exact recipe. That is craft. That is taste. That is the human hand, even when many hands are involved. And there is another part of this reframing. The role of the artist shifts from making every piece by hand to making the right decisions. Deciding what the tool does and what the tool does not do. Deciding what needs the rough edge. Deciding what needs time. Deciding what must be made in a physical space so that people feel it. Because humans respond to real signals. Faces. Reactions. Small timing. A glance that changes everything. The best stories live there. Not in spectacle. Spectacle helps. It sets the stage. It gives scale. But the heart of story is often a face reacting. A pause. A breath. A tiny change in the eyes. Tools can support that. They can give the actor more real cues. More real light. More real context. And when the performer has more real information, the performance changes. It becomes more grounded. More alive. So technology can actually help human emotion show up more clearly, if it is used with care. Now bring this into daily life, because this is not only for filmmakers and curators. Most of us are now surrounded by tools that can generate text, images, plans, emails, ideas. You can ask for 10 options in seconds. And that can be helpful. But it also creates a new skill you must learn. The skill is not generating. The skill is choosing. The skill is knowing what you are trying to say. If you use the tool when you are tired, it may give you something good enough. And good enough can be dangerous because it ends the search. It stops you from asking what you actually want. The tool may give you a perfect template for a message, but only you know whether you want to sound warm or firm. Only you know the history with that person. The tool may give you a beautiful image, but only you know whether it matches the feeling you are trying to share. So the human job becomes clearer. Set the rules. Decide the purpose. Use the tool. Then edit with honesty. Ask, does this sound like me? Does this feel true? Does this make someone feel something real? One practical way to do this is to create your own constraints. If you are writing, decide the mood first. Calm. Curious. Sharp. Gentle. Then let that mood guide your choices. If you are making a design, choose a limited set of shapes or materials. If you are making a story, choose one main emotion and protect it. If you are using AI to help, do not start by asking for a finished product. Start by asking for raw material. Variations. Sketches. Then you do the real work. You select. You combine. You remove. You adjust. This is where your taste grows. And taste grows most when you notice what repeats. After a while you will see the tropes. The familiar lines. The same smooth pattern. And then you can push past it. You can break the tool a little. Not by being reckless, but by asking it to do something it was not designed to do. By giving it strange limits. By forcing it into a more personal shape. This is often where new art appears. Not when people use the tool the normal way, but when they bend it. When they refuse the easy outcome. When they chase something inconvenient. Because the meaningful thing is often inconvenient. It takes time. It takes thought. It takes revision. And that leads to a final deepening without adding a new topic. There is a quiet way to think about soul in art. Soul is not a feature you add. It is not a filter. It is not a style. Soul is what remains when you can sense a human risk inside the work. A choice that could have failed. A detail that feels too specific to be generic. A moment that is not trying to impress you but to connect with you. Soul is often in the imperfect parts. The tiny flaws that show decision. The slight roughness that shows a hand. The pause that shows restraint. In a world where tools can make everything glossy, restraint becomes precious. Saying no becomes a kind of craft. Slowing down becomes a kind of craft. Building a space where people can feel wonder again becomes a kind of craft. So as these tools become more common, the real question is not whether machines can make things that look like art. The real question is whether humans will keep shaping tools with taste, with limits, with courage, and with care, and where in your own work could you add one clear constraint that helps your voice stay visible inside all that easy output?